Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about what I would do differently if I was starting HYROX all over again. Now, first things first is whenever you're getting into HYROX, you need to know how much time per week you have to train. For example, if you're somebody who's super busy, maybe you're a parent, or you just don't have a lot of time to train, you've only got 6 to 8 hours a week, you work with those 6 to 8 hours and then build from there. Number one is just establishing how many hours a week you can train and still recover from it. Number two is establishing baselines. For example, I just came out of a deload week. Like for example, this morning, I did a 5 miler time trial. I'll put it on the screen now. There you go, 30 minutes, 31 seconds. That is a baseline. We will retest that at some point down the line after we do some more training specific to me, things like that. I have a coach and there's reasons for that. Speaking of baselines, we're gonna get in the gym and we're gonna go find a 5 rep max on front squat. So let's do it. Because my camera might die here, I'm only going to show you what I'm doing today, which is going to be the front squat 5 rep max. Front squat is going to be 5 by 5, so we're working to a heavy 5, and then 90% of that for max reps. That is what the 5 rep max baseline KPI is here, okay? So my camera doesn't die, just show you the front squat, and then we'll talk about how it goes whenever maybe I'm at home, my camera's not dead. All right, we are checking back in. 5 rep max for the front squat. So I got my phone pulled up here. I got 205 for 5 reps. That was definitely felt pretty hard, especially after today's 5 miler KPI tester. That was definitely tough, but the reason why baseline testing is so important is because you have to understand where you sit within your current fitness threshold. So if you don't know where that is, then you're just kind of, you could still build fitness and things can go well, but if you don't have things you can retest, and how do you know if you're getting better and how do you know if your fitness is improving, okay? Brings me to my next point, and that is understanding the HYROX demands. What that means is, put simply, HYROX is a running sport. So much nuance to that, okay? But let me just break it down this way. Half of the race is literally running. 50% of it is running. It's 8 kilometers, and by the time you usually do the entire thing from start to finish, you've ran about 5.5 miles. In New York City, it was about 6 miles, but we won't talk about that. Make sure that you plan your training accordingly. I would say the biggest mistake that people make whenever they're getting into HYROX is prioritizing strength training way too much. There is a place for strength training, and I'm actually an advocate for probably more strength training than most other people in the HYROX space will give it credit for, but that's because of what I believe and how I train, and we'll make adjustments. We'll take away some things here and there. I need you to understand that aerobic fitness is what will win this sport. Without an aerobic engine, none of it matters. Zone 2 running is boring, but it's the foundation. Think about it this way. The bigger the base, the higher the peak, right? Think of it literally like a pyramid. The bigger your zone 2, your aerobic base is, the higher you can actually get in terms of the sport. Now, I understand that not everybody wants to go chase elite 15 or elite status within the sport. You just want to go out there and have fun. But part of, I believe, the race is already hard enough by itself, even if you're just doing it for fun. So why do you want to, I would say you probably don't want to suffer for a race that you paid money to participate in. You want to feel like, hey, I got something out of this. And that's also why HYROX is really cool, is because it is inclusive to everybody. A lot of people can do it without having a super technical background in sports. CrossFit's really, really tough. You got to learn how to move the barbell effectively. So, handstands, all those things. It's very skill-based, whereas HYROX is not very skill-based in that sense, and you can actually, kind of go from couch to HYROX and actually complete a race. So that's what I love about HYROX. That is number 3. Let me tell you now about number 4. Next thing I want to talk about is station work. Now, I know half of the race is running. You got to make sure you have a good aerobic base so that, like we talked about, the bigger the base, the higher the peak. But the other half is station work. So whenever you are getting into station work, you wouldn't get under a bar that's 315 pounds to squat unless you've squatted in the past. You got to practice the movement. You got to make sure that the movement efficiency works before you put it under a load, AKA the weight. Same thing can be said for things like even like ski erg. Making sure you have proper form so that you're not wearing yourself out in the first station before the rest of the race even takes place. Same thing with things like sleds. let's make sure that we know how we're gonna move the sled before we actually put weight onto the sled, how to make sure your form's set up correctly. It's little things, little practice sessions like that. What I love to do personally is drill a lot of the station work, even in easy sessions like zone 2. So without getting into the super nuances of training, you might hop on a bike for an hour, but hey, every 6 minutes, let's hop off the bike. Let's do 15 burpee to plates. That's really, really good because it allows us to be slow and methodical with our movements, so that when we get to race day, those movements that we're trying to do a little bit faster isn't something we're unfamiliar with, right? Sounding familiar with squats, being under a bar, things like that. I love doing it with things like sled pull, sled push, moving the weight and trying to keep your breathing under control. It's just a really, really good form of training. Now this next part is extremely important, and the reason why it's so important is because it's huge into how you're actually going to respond to training, how you recover from training, if you're potentially overtraining and can maybe even hurt yourself. So that being practice high/low training days. What do I mean by that? Now this is really important. We're talking about high CNS days and low CNS days. All that means is easy days are easy and hard days are hard. You need to identify, AKA, what your deficiencies were in your baseline testing, and then you tie it to how many hours a week do I have to train, and then you put it into this, okay? What do I need to get better at? So what do the hard days need to encompass more of? If somebody's coming from a big running background, yes, you still need to run. Yes, you still need to do threshold stuff, but the priority might not be as big as you think. You might need to prioritize the weight room and vice versa. You're somebody coming more from the strength training or powerlifting world, you need to do more running. So the way that I like to look at this is let's look at it from the lens of a 5-day split, and you only get to work out 1 time a day. I would say Monday would be a low, easy day. Not even easy, but just something that doesn't tax your nervous system. When I say CNS, that means central nervous system. We're talking about things that are not going to tax your central nervous system so that you can actually adapt to it and recover from training. Monday would be something like lower body strength training. Tuesday would be something like a threshold run. Wednesday would be a recovery day. Thursday would look something like an upper body lift. Friday would be an easy run. Saturday would be a threshold slash VO2 slash HYROX type workout. High CNS, low CNS, easy days easy, hard days hard, so that you can recover from the training and actually make adaptations and stay as healthy as possible. Now there's a lot of nuances to that, but I don't want to overcomplicate it. I just want you to take the big things away. Easy days easy, hard days hard. Don't mix the two. Now before I tell you the last points, let's go on a 60-minute run. Okay, so let's talk about one of the last things when it comes to getting ready for a HYROX. So pick a race and then work backwards. So the ideal, quote unquote, ideal, if you're, depending on your, I guess, race experience, skill level, fitness level, all those things, is I would try to give it like 16 weeks. And that's not 16 weeks of like, you know, balls to the wall, hammer and nail. Like it's not like that, okay? It's split up into blocks. The best way that I can explain it is this. Like we talked about earlier, HYROX rewards your aerobic capacity. So when we think about a 16-week window, we're gonna break those 16 weeks up into 3 phases, okay? We're gonna have a base phase, a build phase, and a peak phase. So base phase typically will last anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. Now, in this reference that we're talking about, I'm talking about a 16-week window, okay? So we'll start with that. 8 weeks of base building. What that means is we are prioritizing low impact zone 2 work, high zone 1, and basically just building some durability. That means easy work on the bike, on the rower, on the skier. We're doing some easy runs, strength training, and then we're gonna mix in maybe 1 threshold run per week, and then maybe we'll mix in a HYROX session once a week, something like that. The goal is to just build the base, right? Build your aerobic capacity. Like I said, we build the base, which is why it's called base phase, right? Wink, wink. base phase, so that your peak when you get to the end of the race can be higher. Once you've done that for 8 weeks, we're gonna go into a build phase. This will last anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks typically. In those 6 to 8 weeks, we are gonna start introducing more HYROX-y type workouts, okay? You're gonna be doing more compromised running. What does that mean? There's so many things out there about, oh, what is compromised running? It doesn't exist, all the things. All that means is we just want you to feel what it feels like during the race. That's it. We want you to be able to get on a treadmill and run for, let's just say, a 1K, hop off, do a sled push, and then hop back on the treadmill and keep that pace that you had before. It's little things like that. There's nuance to it. It's not as simple as that, but we want to mimic some race pace feel. Also, we were going to start introducing more VO2 max work into there as well. This is where we're going to do some more, I guess let me put it this way. Let's say you want to run a 1K. Let's just say your 1K pace, hey, oh, it's 1 kilometer of running in HYROX. I want to run it in 5 minutes or less. Okay, cool. Let's make sure that you can actually run a 1K in 5 minutes first, okay? So what we do with speed work is we need to be able to do the actual speed necessary to run that pace and then be able to recover from it. Now, you're not running at near sprinting speed for an entire 5K, 10K, or even 8K that you might do. That's not a part of it. The training is training your body to know what that pacing feels like. We're gonna introduce the VO2 max, you'll keep your threshold, and we might incorporate one more HYROX type workout. So we're looking at maybe 3 quality sessions per week, but those sessions aren't all these huge, long 90-minute things, okay? You'll get to that point in build phase whenever we're getting ready for the race, but that's what it was very, very important to understand, is that over a 16-week cycle, you're gonna do some base building, you're gonna do a build phase, and then you're gonna do a peak phase. Peak phase is just lowering volume slightly, intensity stays the same or even maybe comes up just slightly, just to make sure you feel sharp, that you know what the pacing should feel like, and then you adjust from there. Wrapping up the video, big thing to remember is just tracking your KPIs, our key performance indicators, our baseline testing metrics. This matters because whenever you get into this block, you want to understand where I started, let me retest about halfway through, and then I'll retest again maybe towards the end, okay? This is just to make sure that we're training appropriately, that we're making the adaptations we need to make, and then we adjust training potentially from there. The big thing that you have to understand is not everybody is treated the same. Some people need to prioritize strength work, some people do not. Some people need to do both. We just need to find a balance. It all exists in this sport. That's what's so cool about this sport, is that you can get better at it in so many different ways. And for me, coming from like a competitive HYROX athlete, is I'm doing it in ways that fit me for this time of my life, this time of season. I'm going into the off season. I'm in the off season. So I need to look at things from a different lens as opposed to being in race shape right now. It's all completely different. I'm not trying to absolutely obliterate myself 3 times a week, which I will when it comes to build phase, because that's what I'm capable of doing. It's just making sure that you have a structure in place, because I have the end goal in mind, which is a race down the line, which I'll announce in a future video coming soon. I hope that you learned something here in this video today. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you have any questions, drop them down below. But otherwise, get after it.